The 6 core syndicates each have 3 weapon variants with unique abilities. Today I'm going to show you which of those 18 you should keep and which you should chuck. I'm the Engineer, let's solve a practical problem. There are 18 syndicate weapons in total. That's 6 primaries, 6 secondaries and 6 melees, split evenly across the 6 main syndicates. Acquiring the weapons is easy enough. You can get them yourself by ranking up through the appropriate syndicate, and once you're at rank 5, purchase the desired weapon for standing. Secondaries are 100,000 standing, whilst primaries and melees are 125,000. However, this does take a fair amount of time, and it's not the most efficient use of syndicate standing at the moment. An alternative is to simply trade the weapons from other players. Unlike most weapons, syndicate weapons can be traded so long as they are brand new unused. At the time of making this video, and probably forever, syndicate weapons are a lot cheaper than the value of multiple Warframe augment mods from those same syndicates. So because of this, and especially the time and resource cost of ranking up every syndicate, I highly recommend trading for the weapons. Now do be aware you must have the appropriate mastery rank to acquire the weapons, whether from players or from the syndicates directly, and you must also have free weapon slots. These purchases do not come with any free slots. So that's really another reason to sell the Warframe augment mods. You'll need the extra plat to get those weapon slots too. So now let's have a look at what curious weapons you're picking up. Syndicate primaries, syndicate secondaries, and compatible weapons equipped with the syndicate weapon augment mods are all able to cast a syndicate effect. Each syndicate effect follows a similar pattern. They charge up with 1000 affinity earned by the weapon while the weapon is active. This can be either direct affinity or shared affinity, such as from allies. For weapons with a syndicate augment below max rank, it will take more affinity to gain that charge up. And if you have any affinity boosters in play, they will reduce the amount of kills or other actions needed. Once they've charged up, the weapon then releases the syndicate effect and goes onto a 30-second cooldown while it's active. Sheathing your weapon pauses this timer unless it's swapped for another weapon with the same syndicate effect. Immediately on cast, all enemies and destructible objects within 25 meters take 1000 damage with a guaranteed proc, and the type depends on which syndicate you're using. Also immediately, your frame will gain a benefit, plus an additional buff lasting for 30 seconds, and the buff type depends on the syndicate that created the mod or weapon that you're using. I'm going to pop all of the syndicate variations here on screen for you, so you can peruse that at your leisure. Each of the syndicate primaries and secondaries have no additional quirks other than the syndicate effects, but they do come with different stats to their standard and where existing prime counterparts, so I'll summarise that for each weapon. The Rakta Cernos compares favourably to the Cernos and Cernos Prime. While it has a marginally lower crit chance than the normal Cernos, and the lowest stated chance of all 3 variants, its much faster draw speed than either of them, and middle of the pack damage, means it can achieve a higher theoretical DPS. The Cernos Prime splits its damage and status into 3 arrows, making it less effective at range or with decreased accuracy versus the Rakta Cernos, but it does gain bonus damage on headshots, so this can be more of a preference thing. In a nutshell though, if you like the normal Cernos, the Rakta Cernos will give you plenty extra damage in addition to the blight effect. The Rakta Ballistica is a staggeringly big upgrade of the basic Ballistica. This repeating crossbow secondary gets a huge damage jump, plus a minuscule crit chance increase. Aside from that pure damage increase and the syndicate effect though, there's basically no usability difference in between the 2 weapons. The Ballistica Prime is stronger again, owing to actually usable crit stats, despite a lower base damage than the Rakta version. And the Prime variant also has a unique quirk of spawning a Spectre on a charged shot kill, but that bonus can easily be ignored. This weapon family is far from the strongest though, but the Rakta Ballistica is a mandatory upgrade over the base version if you can't get the Prime and still want to use this weapon. The Tigris has standard, Sancti and Prime variants, all functioning identically as a 2-shot shotgun. Click for the first shot, release for the second shot. Aside from the syndicate effect on the Sancti, the only differences are in base stats, and to that end the Sancti trades out a small amount of status and half of its crit damage bonus in favour of improved damage and crit chance from the base version. The Prime has yet more damage but identical reload and crit stats to the base variant. As a result, the Sancti and Prime versions of the Tigris are extremely close in potential DPS, meaning with the Syndicate proc, the Sancti is the one I'd consider just slightly better, with both about 50% better than the standard version. Out of every weapon I'm talking about today, this is the one I wouldn't miss if it was accidentally deleted from the game. I am talking about the Castanas. There's no Prime version, only Standard and Sancti, and the Sancti variant is simply miles better. It has nearly double the damage, 3 times higher crit chance, more crit damage, hugely more status stance, and a larger explosion range. And it's still terrible. If you enjoy this weapon, more power to you, but I definitely don't. At low mastery ranks, the Boltor is a typical main weapon, and it does well, for a spell. The Prime variant has all-round improved stats, allowing it to manage around 2.5 times the damage output with a full build. But then the Telos Boltor, despite lower base damage and fire rate than the Prime, manages to outdo its damage by over 25%, thanks to massively improved crit stats. 2.5 times the crit chance of the Prime, and a 0.4 higher crit multiplier to boot, brings the Telos Boltor well above the Prime variant. It's still far from the best weapon in the game, but the Telos Boltor is a capable gun. The Telos Akbolto is not a capable gun. Unlike the Telos Boltor, the Telos Akbolto trades out crit stats for status, and a bit of base damage. The result of this is actually a lower potential DPS than the standard version, not accounting for status procs, and substantially lower than the Prime. The status isn't that much of a benefit. First, if you really want status, you wouldn't be using this gun, and second, the status procs of the Prime are plenty enough, while the standard version can manage. As such, the Telos Akbolto is definitely MR fodder. The Hek is a simple shotgun, no fuss, just shotgun. Similarly, the Vaykor Hek is a simple shotgun, but with the Syndicate proc added on. Oh, and over twice the crit chance, double the mag size, and a major fire rate buff. You know, little things which more than double the potential DPS. The Vaykor Hek is just a direct upgrade, and gives it an astonishing amount of damage potential, so long as the enemy is almost in melee range. The Vaykor Marelok is far less wonderful in terms of an upgrade. In fact, aside from the Syndicate proc, the only damaging change is that it has a 1/3 higher crit chance, on a weapon with a pathetic 1.5 times crit multiplier. The DPS this can put out is just terribly low, and there's no redeeming factor I can see. That's it, that's the entire weapon. It's terrible. If you've never used the Simulor before, I can tell you now, it's a weird one. It fires magnetic balls of energy, which you can leave to impact on a target or explode after a distance. Or you can fire multiple shots and watch them merge together into some kind of vortex. It's hard to really get a good mathematical idea of the potential of the weapon, but I personally didn't find it that great to use. The Synoid variant is mechanically the same, with marginally higher crit chance, status chance and fire rate, but also much higher damage and better ammo totals. It supposedly can put out a hefty chunk of damage, but placing the shots and waiting to make good on them ruins it entirely for me. The Gammacor was one of my earliest secondaries, and the nifty little armband laser stayed there pretty much until I got an Icarius. The Synoid variant is a direct upgrade, with much more status, massively higher crit chance, and a smidge more damage. It's a little over a 2-fold increase in DPS on a full build. As a result, it's almost workable for damage if you're doing nothing more than basic Star Chart missions. Anything higher and it falls off hard and fast. The Penta grenade launcher is an unusual one to use, but if you like spamming its grenade, the Secura Penta is a substantial upgrade. Massively improved crit chance and status chance, double the fire rate, and an ammo pool improved to match. Each grenade is marginally weaker than before in base damage, but the stats more than make up for it, increasing the DPS around 3 to 4 times over, depending on the exact detail of your build. The Secura dual Cestra sits alongside the Telos Akbolto for ridiculousness in its stats. It's got significantly better crit chance than the standard dual Cestra, significantly better status chance, marginally better damage. You'd think so far we'd be onto an upgrade, right? No. The Secura dual Cestra loses 1/3 of the fire rate. All those buffs to the other stats, and it actually ends up being worse for DPS. You can get more status procs out of this variant, sure, but the standard has no problem doing that either, at least comparatively, so there's no gain at all. In the end, this weapon is just MR fodder. That wraps up on the primary and secondary weapons, so now onto the melees. I've separated these out as they follow an entirely different formula. None of them have any Syndicate procs built in, but instead have quirks added onto their normal capabilities. As melee is somewhat odd when it comes to DPS calculations, what with stances, forced procs, heavy attacks and slide attacks, I'm going to keep the comparisons to a simple arsenal DPS comparison. This figure is comparative between weapon pairs only, and doesn't represent the weapon's power compared to any other weapon type. The Dark Dagger family comes with innate radiation, and is the only weapon type in the game where the Syndicate weapon can also use a Syndicate weapon augment. The Rakta version has substantially higher base damage, and all other core stats enhance too, meaning potential damage rises almost fourfold at full combo. The Rakta Dark Dagger also feeds you shields and overshields when dealing damage to enemies with a rad proc on them. Also, drawing the dagger will proc Mind Haze, reducing the range enemies can visibly spot you. It's not the strongest dagger in the game, let alone melee overall, but it's about the only means of restoring shields from ordinary attacks. The Magistar weapon family is a hammer class weapon type styled like a mace, and it hits like one. The Sancti version comes with a slight damage and attack speed buff, with significant crit chance and status chance improvements, giving around 3 times the potential damage with a combo build. The Sancti Magistar comes with 2 quirks, the first being a 20% resistance to status effects whilst held, and the second being a 5% lifesteal on heavy attack, which is shared with allies within 15 meters. As a result, a combo heavy attack build can do wonders to allow you to maximize the damage of normal attacks and use heavy attacks for on-demand healing, while still having more DPS potential than the standard Magister on a normal combo build. Alternatively, you could go for a heavy attack only build, but that won't be as capable long term. That works if your main damage source isn't your melee. The Boltace is a pair of tonfas, similar to the Cronin, except with puncture damage instead of slash, and that seriously is impacting its potential at higher tiers. The Telos variant comes with enhanced damage, status and attack speed, along with massively improved crit stats, allowing a combo build to get around 4 times higher potential DPS over the standard Boltace. The Telos Boltace also has a couple quirks. It enhances bullet jump velocity, roll distance, aim glide time and wall latch time. You can also slide attack with the Telos Boltace to drag enemies in, and if you redo the slide attack, they'll be launched into the air and held in lifted status for a short duration. Both of these come with a short cooldown. Overall, the Telos Boltace is a substantial upgrade from the standard Boltace, but then the standard one is pretty terrible. I don't know if this weapon is pronounced Sydon or Sydon, so I'm sticking with Sydon. The basic version of the Sydon is pretty basic, though the Vaykor variant has enhanced crits, attack speed and status, at the cost of a sliver of base damage, granting a little over twice the combo damage potential. The Vaykor Sydon's quirk is supposedly the ability to emit a radial blind when you do a heavy blocking attack after blocking 15 attacks incoming. But unfortunately, whilst it does the animation at the moment, it's doing literally nothing else. It's probably a bug, of course. But even if it was working, wasting time blocking and then throwing away your combo for a radial blind is a bit dumb, so don't do that. Overall, this weapon's really not that amazing. The Heilocor weapon family already come with a quirk of scanning kills into the codex. The Synoid Heilocor steps this up by allowing you to heavy attack kill an enemy to create a spectre of them for 30 seconds. But that's only if they've already been fully scanned into the codex, and no Xmas units. To aid in this, the Synoid Heilocor comes with a minimum 20 combo count, meaning you always have at least a 2x multiplier. As for base stats, the Synoid variant ditches any notion of being a crit weapon, losing over half the crit chance in favour of more than tripling the status chance, and a moderate attack speed boost. The result is a weapon with less paper DPS, but a heck of a lot of status potential even if you don't go for a combo build, allowing for that heavy attack approach. But your reward is a single spectre for 30 seconds. Personally, I'd stick with the standard Heilocor and more DPS for codex scans. Lastly, we have the Lecta family, containing standard and Secura versions. The standard Lecta is an extremely underwhelming whip, with the lowest paper DPS of all the melee weapons here. In comparison, the Secura version has about 75% more base damage, a bit more crit chance and status chance, plus 25% faster attack speed. This gives it around a 4-fold paper DPS increase, but it's still on the low end. The Secura comes with one somewhat hard to quantify perk, in that it enhances the credit drops from kills by an undisclosed amount. That's it. It's just a little extra credits. I can tell you from experience that it's not a lot, and it's not worth picking up this weapon over other options just for those extra credits. But it's a thing, it exists. Okay then, so that is every Syndicate weapon broken down and compared on a mathematical level. My personal preferences out of all of them would be the Telos Boltor primary, Synoid Gammacor secondary, and Sancti Magistar melee. A couple of throwback or nostalgic weapons there, and a mace of mass healing. If you have enjoyed this video, or learned something new, make sure to give the video a like, and if you want to see more, whether new or been here before, remember to subscribe as well. For now though, gain standing, proc effects, and fight well, Tenno.
There we are. That did it. Guys? Guys? Hello? Y'all have fun there.